Sounds good. Guys, what we're going to do today is I'm going to bring in a couple of parts actually, and we're going to do one of the enhancements in Mastercam 2023 is our B-axis contouring in the mill turn environment. This is going to be a huge time saver as far as process streamlining. We're going to be able to replace some extra tools that we normally use to clear stock out and actually be able to finish a part with one cutter, maybe instead of using 2 or 3 different lathe tools. So let's go ahead and the part I'm using today is basically it's called the Witch Doctor, and it's a BattleBot. It's a vehicle that Mastercam we use as far as for this presentation. And as you can see right here, we're going to be working on this is the gear housing here, and that is the one we're going to be using the B-axis contouring on. And what I'm going to do is this is basically the profiles of the turning that we're going to be doing. And what I want to do is come up here. I'll get rid of these ones here. And let's go ahead and get started. And what I want to show you first is the traditional turning in Mastercam and how we would actually come in here and run a finish tool inside this profile in the bore and actually on the OD. So let's go ahead and get started. And on this finish, I want to go ahead and I'm going to pick this inside bore chain. And I want to pick this boring bar. Make sure I'm in the upper left, which is good. Let's go ahead and basically set up a just a standard tool path. Everything looks good there. And let's go there. So now what I want to do is if I want to do one thing I do want to add is I want to change this plunge parameter. And I'll change my lead out to 90. And we'll go ahead and I'll show you what we end up with current state. So what I want to do now is I'm going to run this boring bar in here. And as you can see, the boring bar is only going to plunge down to where it can get into that stock without actually gouging that part. So we left all this in here, which we'd have to come back in either with a small grooving tool, maybe, and or we could actually, maybe cock a tool on an angle in the turret. But a lot of work to do. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a finish on that OD, and then we'll move on from there. Let's do the OD the same way, but this tool I'm going to use. Change the direction of it. Here. Lead out. Come in 180 and 45. And make sure the plunge, plunge is on. And let's go ahead and look at this one. This one's kind of like, it's basically the same way, guys. We're going to come in, and as you can see, that cutter, there's no way it can get this stock moved out of here. It's not going to happen. And come on around, and we're going to miss right through here too as well. In the past, we've had to come back in, like I said, with extra tools, maybe a groover, and do a grooving profile along here, and maybe even in here to get that stock out. This is basically the traditional way we've been doing it, even in mill turn. But now in 2023 Mastercam, let's look at the automatic B-axis contouring. Go ahead and suppress that. I'll come back up to my turning, go here. I'm going to pick this B-axis contour. And what I want to do is Go ahead and chain this. And as you can see, up here, we have our tools that are in our toolbox, same as what we had when we did the traditional. I'm going to go ahead and pick this 1-inch diameter boring bar. One thing that I want you to be aware of, we do have to make sure in the parameters that the compensation is set to the center line of the insert on the radius. That's the only way this will work like that. So we got that set. And I'm going to come down here, and one thing we want to make sure of is we want to make sure our cutter comp and everything's set right. Compensation here will be to the left. Set our lead in, lead outs, which will be, I'm going to come in at 180. Our lead out is going to be set to -90. And then we're going to come in here. And what I want to do is I'm currently going to leave this at the tool angle limits. This is huge in here because this is what's going to actually have the B-axis in your machine do the simultaneous work. So let's leave that at 0 for now. Let's retool. Okay. So now let's go ahead, and I'm gonna go ahead and backplot this. As you can see, not much of a difference than what we had when we did the traditional. So what I'm going to do is come back into my parameters, and I want to go to my tool axis mode control right here. And I'm going to put in here a -15 degrees. You can put more if you need to, but I think this will do the job for this particular. There we go. And as you can see, the tool path now looks much nicer. And when I backplot it, I'm going to go ahead, and as you can see, my B-axis is already kicked up -15 degrees. And it's going to come in. It's actually going to run right along there, and you can see it moving and tilting as it goes along. And that is one of the ways that we can use the B-axis in the automatic mode. So let's go ahead now. I want to go ahead and do the OD for as well. So let's go ahead and we'll chain it. We're going to use this. We'll use this cutter, this 35 degree. Again, I'm going to go into my parameters, guys, and I want to make sure that that is set right, which it should be. I've already had it set. So let's go ahead now, and our compensation here is going to be to the right, of course. And then I'm on my lead in. I want to go ahead. Lead in will be 180. Lead out is going to be, we'll set that to 45. Tool axis control, this is where it changes here a little bit. I'm going to leave this on -15, but it'll still be in the automatic mode. So let's go. The big thing is if you have the B-axis in your mill turn machine, this is going to be a huge process. This will change the process big time as far as how you want to condense your tool count down. And as you can see, the B-axis is moving right along there. And it got all those parts that we couldn't get. A little bit right there maybe, but we'll fix that here in a few minutes. That looks good. So that kind of covers the automatic mode in our B-axis contouring for the enhancement for the 2023 Mastercam. So now what I'm going to do here, guys, is I'm going to move this down, and I'm going to go ahead and I want to copy these two, and I'm going to drag and drop them down here. Whoop, get there. Copy after, and move my insert bar down. So now what I want to do is I'm going to run the same paths, but I want to run them in a manual mode, B-axis manual. So the first thing, really all I need to do here is come back in, And I'm going to switch this to manual. And I want to go to levels. And what I've done here is I've created vectors along the profile, as you can see right here. And to draw those vectors are no different than you would on a 5-axis toolpath in milling. So you just draw them in the wireframe and put them wherever you think you want to have that tool tilt. And basically, you want to keep it from tilting into the chuck, of course, and maybe not tilt it as much to make sure, you know, that's going to actually get where it needs to be as far as the end of the insert. So what I'm going to do here is go back here, go back in to my parameters, go to manual, and I want to come in here. And it doesn't matter what order you pick these vectors in, guys, or tilt lines. You can call them whatever you want. Mastercam is going to read them based on, just like in a 5-axis mill toolpath, it's going to pick them as it's changed right here. So let's look at that. Now let me go ahead and regen, and you'll get a whole different perspective of how this really is really very powerful. As you can see, it comes in horizontally, and then it starts its it tilts. It doesn't stay tilted like the automatic mode. It actually works that profile and gets all that stock dug out of there. Let's go ahead and I'll show you a little bit better way on the outside here too. On the OD, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to come in. I go to my basic motion control or tool axis control, whatever you want to call it, manual. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pick these vectors. And I can pick that one. These are, I'll show you why I'm picking those here in a minute. So now let's go here and let's add. Okay. So as you can see, it's going to follow those vectors all the way down. The B axis will rotate the tool right like that. And as you can see, it comes right in there. And we could actually, and I'll show you in a minute how we can actually adjust these as well. And see it as the tool comes over, it gets it, there it goes. And it comes off. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can create vectors in here. And I'm going to go ahead right now and I'm going to pick these two. And I'm going to go ahead and delete those. Now they are associated with a toolpath, but it doesn't really matter. We can change those when we select them. Let me go ahead and turn these tilt lines off. And let's go ahead this time. Regen this. And my back plot, a lot of you guys already know this, but you can actually, when you go to back plot, click on options, display your vectors, guys, right here. And then let's go ahead, and I'm just going to go ahead and run this through the back plot real quick. Okay. Now, another way we can do this is I can come over here and say, save tool geometry, and I can create whatever level I want to put it on. I'm going to put it on 2000. And basically, at this point, we can come in here and we can actually pick these vectors. Let me go ahead and turn my level on. There. Turn this one off. I can come over here. Let me get out of here. There we go. I can pick a vector here. Pick one here. Well, let's just do one here. And what I'm going to do is the highlighted ones, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put them on the level that I already have my other tilt lines on. Go back. Let's get out of here. And let me turn off my levels for 2000. There we go. And let's turn on our manual tilt lines. As you can see, these are the new ones that I just created. This gives you that much more power with that toolpath. And if you want to, before you get started, we have, if you go to wireframe, you can come in here to modify in the modify group to modify length, and you can actually modify these vectors. We can pick this one, and I can go ahead and I can tilt that guy over a little bit more. And probably take this one, maybe tilt him a little bit down this way. And I'm going to straighten this one back up. There. And I think everything else looks pretty good. Maybe, yeah, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead at this point, green check out. Back into my basic motion control inside my B-axis contouring. And let me go ahead and pick this one, this one, this one, which we've already got the other ones selected. But yeah, I'm going to pick these as well. Let me reselect these so we have them in there. There we go. And like I said, doesn't matter what order you pick them in. Mastercam's still going to read them out in the order that the chain is created. A minute. Turn them off now. And let's go ahead and run it through the back plot. And there you go. Okay. At this point, let's go ahead and I'm going to pick these two here. I'm going to hit my G1 and go into my sync manager. And let's go ahead and run these two manual toolpaths simulation. And it's a little bit fast, but as far as control, with the manual mode and the automatic, if you got clearance, the automatic will work just fine. But with if you got parts up close to the chuck and stuff, I would suggest creating those vectors and use those tilt lines to be able to control that tool. And that about wraps up B-axis contouring in 2023 Mastercam. I hope you guys enjoyed that presentation, because what we're going to do now is I'm going to move on to the next enhancement, which is tandem steady rest in Mastercam in the mill turn environment. And what I want to show you there is, let's go ahead and get my bring in apart. Give it a second. These two enhancements in 2023 Mastercam are rather huge as far as in the mill turn environment. Now we're using basically the same part here, but on this one, we're going to be using the shafts that are actually inside that gear housing. So what we're going to do here is we'll make a few assumptions before we get started here. These ODs are already ground. Our goal here is to, these shafts are about 15 inches long, so you're definitely going to need a steady rest so we can machine these ends. We're going to machine this end in the left spindle. We're going to do a pick off and a transfer over to the right spindle and move the steady rest with the sub spindle, and we'll machine this into this shaft. So let's go ahead and get started and kind of like walk through the process of this. And this one here is one that you just, if you think about what you're doing from start to finish and just follow the process, it's pretty simple. So we already have our mill turn environment in. So I'm going to go to turning. And the first thing I want to do here is I want to set up my left side here on my steady rest. So I'm going to pick steady rest. And I'm on the left side. And what I want to do is I need to make sure these are unclamped. So I'm going to unclamp. And I'm going to go ahead and green check out. The next tool path will be another steady rest. So this one here, I want to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead here and set it to linear. We do need to move the steady rest in position. And I'm going to pick right here. And I've got, as you notice, I've created 2 points of where I want to, this is for the pick off, and this one's for where I'm going to set the steady rest on the left side on the main spindle. So I'm going to pick there. And then what I want to do is one more, and I want to clamp it right there. Okay, that one, that'll take care of that. And at this point, we can go ahead now and we'll go ahead and set up our, this one should be the clamp. Or this is the linear move, I'm sorry. Linear move, that one. And I got that little bit of cart for the horse there. And then we have to bring out steady rest. And this one will be, the final will be the clamp. I'm sorry about that. I got jumped the gun a little bit. But anyway, let's go back and review what we've done in this first group. We've actually unclamped the left side, unclamped the right side. We did a linear move with the steady rest. And right here, we clamped the left side onto the shaft. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and machine this end here. And to do that, go to turning. Pick my rough. And I believe I've got, let's set up, before we get that far, let's set up some turning profiles on both of these. There. And let me pick a turning profile here. And green check out. Now let's go back in and I'll do my roughing. And we're going to start here. And we're going to go back to right to there. Okay. Let's go ahead and let's pick us a tool. Pick that roughing tool. We're on the left. Make sure you're on the left side on the main spindle. And let's go ahead and I'm going to put this at 90. Get the tool in position. And then I want to go ahead and I'm going to set my rough parameters. Of course, this will be right on the comp. Lead in is going to be set at 180. And lead out is going to be set at 45. And we'll go ahead and use our stock for outer boundary and go ahead and set that up. So at this point, with the steady rest, we actually have this into this shaft machined now. So we have it roughed out. And if you want to, just wanted to show you just the roughing of it. So what we need to do now, we go do a fit. So we have these 5. This is the first group done. Everything's done on the left spindle. So now it's time to go ahead and let's get ready to do our pick off and machine the right side of this thing. So at this point, what I'll do is I'll come back up in my turning and I'm going to go to pick off. And then when you create the pick off, you have a strategy up here. Upper stream, you got your lower stream, and we're going to use the one right here. It says pick off with steady rest support. And what I want to do is I want to position the steady rest on the left side. And what I want to do is I want to come here and I want to grab it right here at this point. That's where the sub spindle is going to come over there, and that's where it's going to be do the pick off. So I'll green check out. And it goes ahead and right now it creates, you see it, the actual steady rest. It takes care of all the unclamping, clamping, and it moves the part from the main spindle to the sub spindle. So now we've got 2 things done, 2 of our operations done. So now what I want to do here is I'm just going to pick these 5. And I'm going to go ahead and right click and I'm just going to drag all 5 of these operations down here and copy after. So now let's go ahead and set up the steady rest for the right spindle. So really, these first 2 are unclamps. We really don't even have to fool with those, but we want to go to 23 and we want to go right. And we want to do a linear move to this point right here. And I want to go to toolpath 25. I'm 24, not 25. Sorry about that. Steady rest right. And we want to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and it should go. I may have got that backwards. Let me get back here. This one should be a linear move, right? There. Okay. And then here, this one should be right there. And then let's go ahead. And on this one, what I'm going to do here is I do need to rechain it for the right side to machine this. I'll delete it and add a chain here, there, and we'll come here, get it out of there, and we'll go ahead and set up our roughing for this. With this tool, we can use that same tool. We do need to make sure we're in the right side, and I also want to make sure that I get the tool set up properly here. So I'm going to do 180 and 90. Lead in will be coming from 0. Lead out 135 and use the talk for boundary. And let's go ahead and run this and make sure that looks good. So now we've done 3 things. We've machined this in with the steady rest. We did our pick off, moved it over to the sub, and we've got the steady rest positioned where we want to do the machining on the left side of that shaft. So I'm going to go ahead now, and I believe 24 should have been, yeah, I think a clamp, but let's go ahead, and what I'm going to do is regen these. Okay, and I think I might have had that one. And there we go. Right. Okay. And then 23 linear, and then 24 should be clamped. And there we go. Now let's regen them. And what I need to do now is we need to go, let's see, 23 was, it wants me to pick that point again. Yeah, pick that. There. Okay. And regen that. Is saying final position. I may not be on, let's see if I'm on the right side. Okay. Let's see. There. Right, it's all good. Okay. This should be unclamp. There we go. Now, pick these. Okay. Now that we've got all this done, all I need to do now is let's go ahead and in our mill turn environment, I'm going to go G1. And the biggest challenge, I think, with these tool paths for the steady rest is we have to put in some synchronization codes. So I'm in the sync manager in our mill turn environment. And what we need to do is make sure everything is timed out just right. So I call them weight codes, or you call them synchronization codes, either one. But we have to make sure that the sub spindle is moving exactly with the steady rest, or vice versa when it does the pick off. And in order to do that, I'll show you how to do this. Let's go to our lathe roughing toolpath. And I want to come over here to the steady rest where we got clamped. And I want to drag the approach over to end right there. And I want to drag the end of that process over to the end right there. So there's two sync codes that we need right now, and that'll take care of the first portion of it. And then we'll come down here to 18, guys. And I want to move the home position. And this is for the spindle. Move down a little bit. I want to move the home position of 18 over to 19 to the linear. And it actually puts that in there. And let's go ahead and move 18 end to 19 end. Then I'll come on down here. I'm going to move a couple more to put in here. And I believe I'm going to put the end on 20 to the end on 24. Right here to there. And let's go ahead and bring 25 over on the end to 24 right there. So those are the sync codes that I feel I need right now to make this work correctly without having, without having a sub spindle coming over crashing into the steady rest. So I'm going to do, at this point, I'll just do a save, and let's go ahead and run it through machine simulation. And let's see what we got. There's our shaft in the, you see our steady rest moves into position. So the B axis is coming over and getting that tool. And we'll go ahead and rough this in. And the sub spindle comes over. And everything moves synchronized together back over to the sub side. Once it gets over there, it'll unclamp the steady rest and make its position up. And then the B axis should pick this next tool up and start roughing it. There we go. And that's it. Pretty much it. Actually, a really simple process. The sync codes are a little, take a little getting used to, guys, but that's pretty much, if you run the mill turn environment, you already understand it. If you have a dual stream machine, not so much on a single stream, but on a dual you would. And you just kind of like follow the process of where you want these, on this upper here, where you want to, after the clamp, and after it clamps, you want to move the steady rest down with the sub spindle, and just so on and so on down through there as you need them. But I hope this was this presentation was, I hope you enjoyed it. There is a lot going on, but Mastercam does probably 3/4 of the work for you. And that's pretty much about it on my presentation. And if you have any questions, like I said, the chat box is open. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the other application engineer, Justin Patterson.
All right, guys. So mine's, those of you who don't know me, I'm Justin Patterson, application engineer. Mine's going to be kind of more or less housekeeping. It's kind of not completely aimed 100% at lathe. It's just kind of some enhancements that they've made in 2023 that I just kind of think's worth sharing. So one, I've got this pulled up. It's just in regards to what they're doing now is they've got where you can group solid. You can group. Sorry, I'm getting all these little things here. Group your solid manager together. So what I've got is I've got this a water wheel that was designed for the American Precision Museum a couple years ago, whatever. But if you actually look at the solids, we got a whole bunch of solids in here. I'm talking a whole bunch, and it's kind of hard to keep track of all these things. You now have the ability of creating groups. I'm going to pull one up with this already done, but while this is open, I'm going to show you. It's just as simple as right here. We have what's called add group. So when I pick add group, I can name it, kind of whatever I want. So like, let's just say wheel paddle, right? And I can go in here, and this is the only thing that's a little tricky to do. I won't even try to lie to you. I want to select all these things and see sometimes it only grabs one. You can kind of get it to work. It's just, it's one of those hold your tongue just right. See, like right there, it grabs so many of them. So I'll kind of try to keep playing with, see if there's more of a way, or maybe get with Mastercam to find out. That might be the way to do it right there, is pick the first one, hold shift on your keyboard, and pick and hold the last one. So I still have the shift key down. And that seemed to do it right there. I just happened to figure that out live right there. So, but it's pretty neat. So you can go in here and create all these groups. So again, just pick the first one you want, hold shift on your keyboard, pick and hold. So I still got the shift button down and the left mouse button down. That seems to be the key there. But as you can see, this is what it'll look like when you actually get everything kind of more organized. And it'd be extremely useful. I mean, you looked how there was a lot going on there. Now they've grouped everything together. So now we got this a lot more cleaner interface, outside panels, drive pulley stuff, all that stuff. I just think it's a lot cleaner interface. You can start to really see where I need to go, all that stuff. With the grouping, they also did implement what's called view sheet grouping. Those of you guys that use view sheets, they can get kind of tedious, especially when you got kind of obnoxiously long names like this. Like what I've done is I've created a view sheet for the main spindle solid, main spindle turn profile, main spindle turn profile with tilt lines. So that's those tilt lines that John just got done talking about for B-axis turning. Okay. And then I've got one for my sub-spindle solid, sub-spindle turn profile, and the sub-spindle with the avoidance geometry. And then I've got, both spindles, and then that was supposed to be turn profile, but it's irregardless. Now we can go in here and create groups. So I'm going to select the ones I want. So I select the first one, hold shift, I select the last one. I've got those three selected, and I right click and I can say, hey, let's create a new group. And I'm going to call this main spindle. You can change the color. I'm going to leave it like that. There you go. So what you've got is you now have a collapsible group that you can open, expand and open, and it shows you what's in that group. So I can close that. Now let's go grab our sub-spindle stuff. Hold shift key, add a new group, call it sub-spindle. There you go. I've added those three to it. I can collapse it as well. And then I have the both spindles. Group, new group. Okay. Now, if you want to add, if you create another view sheet, let's just say, whatever, you create another view sheet, call it test. All you have to do is say, hey, right click, I want to add this to the main spindle group. And there we go. It added it there. So I just think it's definitely, again, a lot cleaner way. I guess it didn't add it. I thought it did, but should have added it to that, and I don't know why. But you don't ever try things when you're trying to make things work. But you can kind of see I can ungroup, I can remove from it, I can delete. Everything's still, all the functions still there, but you just have this ability of grouping things together. Okay. With this also, you have the ability of, with all your view sheets, is when you go to merge in a file now. So let's say I go in here and I say merge. I'm going to go grab that view sheet grouping right here, and I want to merge the file in. I now have the ability of merging in the view sheets as well. So you notice no view sheets. The minute I click this, it merges all my view sheets. And I didn't group it. I didn't hit save there. So if you group everything and save it, it would have brought in the groups as well. So there's that. Okay, so here's another one that'll actually, let me bring that twin flow impeller back up, because this is something that everybody's going to like. I know I will. We've all gotten bitten by this bug, I can promise you, and it always happens when you don't want it to happen. And it somehow, some way, you end up moving these things around. You sneeze, it doesn't really matter what. Somehow this one will end up here, everything becomes dirty. Well, for the longest time, if you right click and drag, you've always got this pop up. But that was never the case with a left click and drag. That's where that would happen. Now in 23, I felt like this was saying it because it's going to save me a lot of heartache. Those of you that have trained with me have seen this has hurt me several times. So they now have that pop up even when you left click. I'm left clicking and dragging. You now get the pop up as well. So I think that's a pretty nice thing I wanted to add in there. Also, this is kind of a late thing because it's typically when you're using it, holding down the Alt key and using your arrow keys will rotate your screen 5-degree increments. Okay. It's always been that way. It's always been set to 5 degrees. You now have the ability of going in here underneath your configurations and under screen and view, you can now change that rotation factor. So I'm going to put it at 45 just to be big. I'm not going to write it to my config so we don't have to wait. But see, now each time I click is a 45-degree rotation factor. So I think that's a pretty nice thing there. Let me bring up the next kind of thing, housekeeping thing is they've kind of redone the interface with Zip2Go. Zip2Go has always been kind of a confusing thing. So I'm not going to save this. So I'm going to say no. That's what most people didn't realize when they did a Zip2Go. If you didn't save right before you created your Zip2Go, it would always ask you, do you want to, save this copy? And then it would kind of get confusing because you'd have a Mastercam file, and then you would have a Zip2Go file. So this kind of, I think this helps us really clean this up. Hey, do you want to save it? No, not really. I don't care. Because what I actually have saved already is what I want to send to the Zip2Go. And now you have three options to create. Let's talk about create first. I'm going to go into create. And those of you who work with us in support know we love Zip2Gos because it gives us everything we need. It has your post files, all that stuff. So it's like we're working at your computer. We can pull your configs, meaning that the way you have it set up, it kind of can act the same. That's what we like about this. But you can choose to add or remove. Like if you don't want this, like prime example, I don't have a NetHaspi running, so I don't need the NetHaspi. And I'm not saying get rid of it. I'm just showing you that you can just hit the X and remove what you don't want. Plus, it's giving you the location of where it's pulling everything from. Okay. Then it's kind of neat. You have this next screen to where I can add more files to this. So let's say you have edited code, some documents that your machine tool vendor gave you for something, or in this case, what I did is I just created a quick little video, just kind of a video. There was the twin flow impeller, I'm sorry, it's not that. I got to change that. That's the Zip2Go I need to delete real quick. I did this earlier, so we go ahead and do that so I can override that. There we go. But there's the video. I need to change the file type because, again, just like Mastercam, it's always looking for Mastercam file. But there's the video of the issue. This is something you're making for us. Hit open, and now it's attached to the actual Zip2Go. So now you hit finish. It says, hey, where do you want me to save this Zip2Go? I'm going to go ahead and save it in here. Okay. That way, this is what we get when you send something into support. And then vice versa, if something gets sent back to you, you also, what's neat about the Zip2Go interface is you have edit, which edit means if you forgot to add something, you can go in there and edit, add to it, remove to it. It's just kind of an open interface. But the extract side's really nice. And say, hey, this is the Zip2Go that I want to extract. And if you notice, you probably need to quit calling it Zip2Go because it's actually defaulting as an MCAM content file, which you can change it back to an actual Zip2Go. But these are the best because what is MCAM content file, for those of you that don't know, it just requires you to drag and drop it into Mastercam. So what I'm doing right here, this is not required because all I need to do is drag and drop it into Mastercam. It puts everything where it belongs. You don't have to worry about extracting everything and putting it in the right locations. But what this is doing for me on the extract side is I can go in here and I can look at this MCAM content or Zip2Go, whatever got sent back to you, and get a pretty good idea about what's going on. I can say, okay, well, there's an actual Mastercam file in here, and this is where it's going to put it at. It's going to put it in the My Mastercam parts. All that stuff. You can kind of get more of a visual and says, all right, well, here's that video. It's going to put it there. So if I do that, it automatically extracted everything. This is the same thing as dragging and dropping it into Mastercam. So it's really nice. It put the post in the correct location, everything. So I do like that interface a lot. I think it's extremely helpful. All right, so let's look at another thing that I think is pretty nice. Those of you that don't know, this is actually been around for a little while, but it wasn't. They've actually renamed it or kind of revamped it, is what they actually did. And it's when you have a solid that's a dumb body that has no history, which I like that the best because it keeps the model a lot cleaner. But when there's actually no history, what if I want to add history to this? What if I want to know these, I want to change these bores or counter bores or anything along those lines? Well, in the model prep tab, we have find holes now. I can go in here to find holes, and it automatically, since it was the only body solid that was there, it automatically selected it. If you had more, you could go in there and physically select it. and I say, you know what, I want you to create me operations. You can actually have it create plugs instead. So kind of your model prep plugs. It's a real quick way to put plugs in everything. But I want you to create me some whole operations. I can associate the points because it's going to create some points I can associate to a specific level. But it's just as simple as that. It's just pretty much kind of a little more smart way of doing this. And there it goes. It built all of our holes. So there's our 315 counter bores, all that stuff. So that's in regards to a Mastercam file that already exists. Well, this is what's new in 2023. If I go in and go through the Open tab and I go to a SolidWorks file, like this part right here, in your options now, you now have the ability to create whole operations directly from when I import this. So the minute I import this, it's going to automatically import the whole operations for this part. And there they go. So I do think that's another little quick thing I like to show because a lot of times that's all anybody really cares about. They don't care about anything else but those holes. Okay. The last thing I want to kind of talk about is in 2023, they came up with the ability to open up 2D PDFs. If you actually notice, it's now down here at the bottom. It's a 2D PDF. And what I've got is let me go back to here. I have got a lathe drawing that's from our lathe training class. And I'm going to open the whole thing up because this looks kind of neat on a multiple sheet PDF. Is if you see what it does, it builds, each sheet gets its own view sheet. And in the levels, they get automatically put on their own level and labeled. So I think that's pretty handy. So see, I actually have full-blown CAD right here. Full-blown CAD. So if this is really handy if I wanted to go in here and make a solid off of this, okay? So I can come in here and I can select everything. So I'm just going to hold shift and I'm just going to grab, a couple of these. I don't really need the bottom profile, but I'm just going to do this for now. And I'm going to make a copy of this and I'm going to move this to level 1000 like that. Okay, let's make that our active level and let's hide. Okay. First things first, I see I have kind of a little gap there. So let's go trim this. I'm going to use this as a good opportunity. Those of you that knew Divide you have the snake, anything it comes in contact with, it destroys. Well, the same exact function is available in the trim to entities. So I'm going to do trim to entities. And if I click and hold and just whatever those two come in contact with, it automatically trims those together real nice and easy. Okay. I think that one needed it, but I'm not too sure. We'll find out. Okay. So remember, I only need half of this. So I'm going to delete the bottom like that because I'm going to create a trim profile. Let's go put a new bottom chain on here, right there to there. We're going to go here to our solids tab and we're going to go to revolve. Revolve all the way around, grab the whole thing. And then this is my center line. And just like that, we quickly created a solid. But I knew this because I've already done it, but what if this wasn't to scale? Okay, what if this wasn't to scale? We know that this is 4 inches overall, and it is. So I'm going to purposely make this smaller. 0.7. I'm just going to type a bunch of numbers right there. I'm going to purposely make this smaller. This drawing is not to scale. Well, this is not new for 23. It's just it kind of flows with where I think the power of this 2D PDF is. I need to make this match the actual drawing which in theory from here to here should be 2 inches, right? So underneath transform, you have scale. And I'm going to pick what I want to scale, which is my whole part. And then I've got right here is this called scale calculator. I come in here and I say, all right, well, what's my base line, point, diameter, or radius? Well, in this case, it's a line. I want this line right here. It's measuring 1.5, blah, blah, blah. I need it to be 2 inches. So for that to happen, that is the scale factor for that to happen. So if I green check, there it is. We have now scaled this part to perfect dimensions. And now you can see kind of how handy this is. See, it's a 2-inch diameter or radius for that. So once we revolve this, again, I'm just going to pick my revolve and that. We have a perfectly scaled part to where if you're getting these drawings from your customers or whoever, I think this is extremely handy. Don't think of it just for lathe. Think of it for Mylars. Something that is a scan of something. There's a lot of options. Now, I will say, just to preface, there are some PDFs it doesn't like, and Mastercam is working on that to find out what that is that it don't like. So that's something that's just like everything else. They're gonna make this work perfect every time. Just don't get frustrated if you see a PDF that does not come in. It does have some little bugs, and it's more or less how the PDF was created. So, other than that, that's pretty much all I got. I want to open this first of all. Let's open it up for some Q&A. If you guys have any kind of questions of anything you saw, kind of going on. Let me see if I can pull my thing back up, see if there was any. Don't see anything, but yeah, is there any questions of anything that you saw between me and John? Any anything else? Any kind of, I guess, really any kind of feedback you guys want to give us, we'll kind of leave it open for that. So, and you guys can unmute yourself, whatever you need to do. Doesn't sound like. And I will preface this, just so you guys know, there's here at QT we have 6 application engineers, so we got guys here to help you. Don't be afraid to reach out when you have questions, when you have concerns. Let's say the minute you hit into this webinar, you're like, oh man, I remembered one. We'll call into support. There's several ways to reach us. You can call us at our phone number 877-429-5708. On our website, there's actually a chat button. Personally, I like to just use the email support@qtemfg.com. We're all here to answer, anything you have. If you have a specific question, don't be afraid to ask, that in the title or, just anything like that. So, I mean, other than that, doesn't sound like anybody really has anything. And I hope this was useful. There was not a bunch of changes made in 2023 for the turning side. They put a lot of energy into the steady rest and the B-axis turning, so that kind of took the blunt of everything. I just wanted to kind of throw these last little housekeeping things in that I think kind of help across the board. So, yeah, I mean, John, if you got anything else or.
The only thing I want to add is these recordings of this rollout will be on our YouTube channel eventually here, very soon actually, and you guys can go back in there and review them again if need be.
Right. Yeah. Other than that, if you guys don't have any questions, I appreciate you guys taking time out of your day. Be with me and John in this. And again, if you have any questions, if you have any struggles with getting 23 going the way you want, definitely reach out. But other than that, you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you later.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.